So these are my 2 herbs. If you want, you can add color. You will find that unless if I'm selling soap, I don't put color into it. I'm not big on color. Color for soap is something you do have to buy separately. Somebody will say, oh, can't I just use food coloring? Well, yeah, you can. But there's an amusing thing that happens when you put food coloring into soap. It's water soluble. And of course soap is used with water. So when you wash yourself with soap made from food coloring, you put the food coloring onto yourself. And that can be kind of interesting if you put like blue food coloring into it and then you wash your face and your face gets a blue tint to it like you're on your deathbed. So you do have to buy, it's called a concentrated dye, and you can buy it in soap catalogs, or you can buy it in a lot of honey catalogs, because you can make soap out of beeswax and honey, and you know, the candle making dye usually can be used for soap. I've got these things curled, set aside, and I haven't decided yet. I may end up putting some tea tree oil in this. I haven't decided yet, so I'm going to go back and forth on that one while I'm doing this. And you know, you can use whatever combination of herbs you want. Those were just the 2 that I'm using, and this is a healing soap. It helps as an antibacterial soap, natural antibacterial soap. So now we're getting into our double boiler here, and obviously a fake double boiler. And you want your water to come up about halfway, maybe a little bit above halfway, and you want your temperature to be a medium low. We're not doing Speedy Gonzales here. Over here I have my mold, and it's set up on a cake pan, or a cake pan, I don't know what this thing is. How about a cake rack or a cooling rack? And it's set up on that because I want to, that'll help get air circulating and help it cure a little bit faster. So that's why it's there. And so now, basically, we're just going to, and this is already kind of drying out, but we're just going to, it takes a little bit to do this because you want to do it slowly, very slowly, but we're just going to kind of keep mixing this, and the soap will start melting. And I'll show you that as it gets going, but you'll actually get more of a liquid soap, not a liquid, but more of a gel soap. And when that happens, then that's what you're looking for. But right now, and I may just, I have a little thing, I just grabbed a little thing of water, and I leave that sitting somewhere, so if things get a little bit dry, I can just put just a few drops in at a time. So I'm going to just not sit here and gab with you guys the whole time, and I'll come back and show this to you as it melts down. Okay? Okay, I forgot to mention this as I'm melting this down. You should, like most soap, you should stir it, not constantly, but frequently. I mean, keep it moving enough so that you can keep the heat going to different, you know, because the top part obviously isn't getting as hot as the bottom part. Oops, let's see if I can make a mess. And so stir it frequently, but don't stir it like crazy. You know, as it gets going, as it melts, it'll be easier to stir. And so don't go crazy on your stirring, and the main reason for that is that you don't want didn't I just put that back in there? You don't want to get suds going in your soap. And then when you put it into your mold, you'll have this layer of like foam on the top that as it dries will stay in your soap, and it won't be the nice pretty bar of soap. Now, as you're doing this, every kind of soap melts a little different. The epitome of soap melting is beef suet, fat, and lye, and store-bought lye, as opposed to like lye from a barrel. But that melts the best. But even sometimes it depends on what the weather is outside, because you know, if the pressure is too much, it may get lumpy long before it starts melting. It may get stringy. I had one batch of soap I made, and I can't remember what kind it was, but I would have swore some animal crawled into it and died, because it had all these long stringy hairs, and that's what they look like. They look like hairs, and they were very, very thin white hairs whenever I turned it. And you'll get those little hair effects, and let's see if I can Now, of course, it's not quite there to that point yet, but you can get that little hair effect going. But this was like the entire soap was that way. Nothing you can do about it. When it gets melted all the way, it'll be like all the rest of it. Some of them just melt differently, so don't panic if suddenly you're looking at this going, the heck are all these little hairs, or this is so lumpy. And as you get you know, it gets easier and it's more melted, it becomes more liquid, it becomes the urge to stir faster becomes great, and it's actually when you should slow down your stirring. Just do nice, gentle, almost folding so that you can get the top stuff that is cooler down to the bottom where it melts. And again, this is because the soap will start foaming up if you really start whipping air into it. So I'm going to take this down. Oops, see, and now I got a bubble because I went a little fast. And that's what happens when you go a little fast, and you don't want to be doing that. And I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be doing that. However you want, if you want a lot of air in your soap, that's fine. But I don't want to be doing that. So I'm going to slow myself down a little bit. And like I said, the more liquid it becomes, it makes you want to go faster, but it actually is when you should slow down a little bit. And I don't put my herbs or anything in until the exact last minute, because heat, this is why I don't like to put it into, you know, start with the soap. Heat destroys things, and lye itself can heat things up and destroy the medicinal value of herbs. So I want it to be in there as little as possible. Oops, and I'm mixing, I'm starting to see bubbles again, so I'm going a little fast. So anyway, I don't want the herb in the heat for as much as possible, and that's why I wait till just at the end to do it. But anyway, we're coming close, but we still got a little ways to go, because if you look down when I lift this up, you can still see lumps in there, and those if you did it right now, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal, but those lumps will not get the herbs into them. They won't get, so the herb won't be distributed throughout the whole soap, and that's kind of where I like to go. So I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, so if you look down in here, we've got pretty much, oh, just as I say that, I find one lump, but we got pretty much a smooth soap here, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that nice smooth soap. So we're about, I may go just now that I'm, just before I turned you guys back on, I stirred it and I thought, oh look, it's there, I don't see any lumps. But right now I've just seen a couple lumps, so I may go just another couple minutes just to get those last couple lumps mixed in, and maybe while I'm doing that I'll just scrape down the sides and put that last little bit in to melt in, maybe even scrape down the spoon with my fingers. And then we'll mix in our herbs, and I have talked myself out of the tea tree. Again, this is all up to you what you put in here. My cousin came in and said, did you tell him about honey? And I'm like, no, I don't know that I did. So just in case if I didn't, honey is another thing. You can put oatmeal into your soap, you know, oatmeal soap. You put some oats, ground up oats into your soap. Literally, soap is, look at it kind of like the first defense of a wound, or one of the parts of healing. I think I've got my thing done, so I'm going to kind of move you guys over, because I got a little mess here and I don't want to burn my camera down, so I'm going to kind of move you guys over and see what I can do here with this. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to just take my soap out of the little double boiler thing that's in. It's already starting to harden up, so I want to quickly put my herbs in. The reason I'm kind of doing it this fast is because you guys' light flash running out of battery light is blinking. I've got to get some more. I use rechargeable batteries, and they last really well for about a year, year and a half recharging, but after that then they just don't hold their charge, and oh my gosh, does it smell good. And you can kind of look down in there. Maybe you guys can't. Maybe I don't have you guys where you can see, and it's just, it kind of gets a very pretty, you know, you get those flower petals swirling around in there, and the minute the herbs hit the soap, it gets a very pretty scent. The scent just adds itself to it. Okay, so I think I've got this pretty mixed in. I usually say that, and then I find out the last bottom part doesn't have it all mixed in. But we're going to do this anyway. So I've got my little mold here, and I'm literally just going to pour it into the mold. And I didn't plan on, like I said, making this much soap, so I'm hoping I didn't go quite overboard as much as, well, that looks like I did a halfway decent job of mixing it in. Now I'm just going to kind of tap it, and the main reason for this, in fact I may just take it off the thing there real quick and tap it on the solid surface, is if I do have any air pockets, which I do right here, I can kind of get those out. And it may take a few taps. And also, if like this one actually has a design in it, this mold does, if you have a mold with a design in it, you don't want to hit it so hard you mess up the design, so you smash the design. But you want to hit it enough so that the soap gets down into the whole design. And then we let it cool. And really, that's it. So we're going to let it harden a little bit at room temperature for a couple hours, and then we're going to stick it in the freezer. And the reason we stick it in the freezer, and we're going to leave it in there for an hour, is not to hurry the process up. It makes it easier to get out of the mold without breaking the mold or without breaking the soap. So we're going to let this sit for a couple hours, and I'll bring you back in a little bit. And we'll put this into the freezer. I guess you don't really need to see me put it in the freezer, but 2 hours or so until when you touch it, there is like no give to it. And then put it in the freezer for about an hour, and that really gets it nice and hard. And then you can usually just flip it out onto your rack. Just put your rack on the top like you do a cake and flip it over, and it'll come right out in one nice, neat piece. Back in a couple hours. Okay, so if you see, I'm pushing here. I don't want to push too hard, but I'm pushing here, and my finger is not going into the soap at all. So I'm going to now stick it in the freezer. I'm not going to, my freezer is right down here. I'm not going to actually show you the inside of my freezer because, well, it's completely stuffed. I had to make room for the soap to go in, and y'all don't need to see what's in my freezer. Up to an hour. When I say an hour, I'm not saying it has to be an hour, but you know, not anything longer than an hour. Just put it in there for long enough for this all to cool off, so that when you touch it, right now there's just a little bit of heat on it. You can just feel a little bit, you know, it's got warm, so it just hasn't cooled all the way down yet. So just put it in there until when you touch it, it feels cold. And so up to an hour tops. So I'm going to get that into the freezer, and then we'll take it out, and I'll show you. Basically, then we're just going to unmold it, and I'll show you that too, I guess, to show you me doing it. Okay, I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so this has been in the freezer for a little bit, and I don't know if you guys can see, probably not unless I do something different with the camera, but as soap freezes, like many things that freeze, it shrinks, gets smaller. Water being the main exception to that rule, so it kind of pulls away from the sides, so that makes it easier to take out. So then we just put our cooling rack on top, and well, I gotta set you down, and then I'll show you. Okay, just so the minute you flip it over, it comes on out. So there is our different soaps. And we're going to let it harden just a little bit more, probably overnight, and then we will take our soap cutter and cut right down the lines, like so. So there is our soap.